Back to Ozarks Fox AM. It is time for more intrigue. We have Sean Paul from Intrigue Journal, and we are so glad you're here because it's been a fun factory in here. I mean, as in...
yeah, fun factory.
Yeah,
you need a level of stability, right?
We need some stability.
And with stability, let's talk about aliens and Atlantis and all that, right?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, you're feeling more grounded already, aren't you?
From where we've come from, this is true.
Well, it's great to be back with you. My wife has been, like, taking over.
Yes.
She does.
Yes.
She's awesome. We love her.
We love
Yes,
her.
I'm a lucky man.
You really are.
And
Yes.
you just had an anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. 18 years.
18.
Oh, 18.
It's better. I thought it was 27, so Juliana corrected me.
27. Okay, wow. All right, well, hey, do you remember 3 months ago, it was in March, I came in and I talked about the Sphinx. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes.
And they believe there's a chamber underneath his left paw. They haven't opened it up yet. Edgar Casey, 100 years ago, said it must be the vault or the Hall of Records.
Oh.
And it will give, it'll disclose the actual location of Atlantis.
Oh, Atlantis.
Do you remember this?
Yes, I do now.
Okay, all right. And then I said that I believe it was out in the West. And you said, in Africa? And I said, yes. Right? Do you remember that?
I don't remember saying that.
And it was called the Richat structure, and I showed that, okay? But let's talk about, I mean, it's a very popular subject. I've known about it my whole life, and modern perceptions, it's been cited in movies and video games and things like that. Let's look at the first slide here. Yeah, look at very popular movie this last year, Aquaman, obviously all about Atlantis. This is absolute fiction, has nothing to do with mermaids and sharks and things like that, whereas this game, I guess, is a lot more research, and it actually really does show about, it talks about a very technologically advanced culture, very powerful, and then actually falls in a catastrophe because of their greed and their corruption. And there's really a profound story that's to be learned from the idea of Atlantis.
Okay.
And basically, what I said back in March is it's believed it's in Africa, the Eye of Africa. It was originally seen from space. Now I sound like my wife, don't I?
Yeah, you do.
Yes.
During one of the Apollo missions, one of the astronauts saw it. This is from space. That's the Earth, and he saw it right here, and they call that the Eye of Africa. And so that's in a town. It's in a country called Mauritania.
But how do you know that's not just a hurricane?
Well, no. Okay, well then let's zoom in. Let's go to the next slide.
Oh, sorry. I was just curious.
No, that's geography right there.
Okay.
That is a structure, okay?
Okay.
So let's go to the next slide, okay? Unmistakable from Atlantis. So this is what it could have looked like back in the day. 12,000 years ago when part of Africa was underwater and there was rings of islands, the central part being here, and then it had different communities. Like this would have been the palace. This would have been where the clergymen or the churches would have been. This is where the military would have been. And then outside of the perimeter would have been like where all the other people would be. 12,000 ships right in here.
Oh, wow.
250,000 troops. They were very powerful. They were. This was in the capital of a country that had 10 kingdoms.
10.
Their reach was basically all of what we knew of Earth at the time. 2 of the colonies were Egypt and Greece. They were ruled by Atlantis 12,000 years ago. I know this sounds crazy, but it's an absolutely amazing story, all right? And according to Plato's account, he talks about...
oh, that's pretty.
Yeah,
yes,
that is.
this is like a conceptual of what it would have looked like, but this would have been an amazing civilization, all right? And Plato, he lays, the Greek philosopher Plato, that's really the only account that we know of Atlantis up to this point. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot more than just what Plato said. But he talks about the dimensions of the city, 23 kilometers in diameter, about half the size of New York City. That's the size of the Richat structure.
Wow. Really?
He talks about the rings and the islands, and if you look at the Richat structure, it's almost a dead ringer. Wow. It's absolutely, and then he also said this, that the buildings were built of rocks that were red, white, and black. And if you go to the Richat structure, the natives that actually live there, they're taking scraps out of the earth and they're building it, and the bricks are red, white, and black.
Wow. Oh, man, that blows your mind.
Okay, and now you're saying, and you were like in the middle of the desert, and and if you went to the Richat structure, you would see seashells. You'd be walking on seashells. They found skeletons of whales out in the desert. So at one time, this Sahara Desert was partially underwater. This whole thing makes sense. And so I was telling you about this in March, But then I started seeing more and more articles, and I'm like, oh my God, there really is something. Would you believe there's like YouTube channels that had 3 million views and controversy, and they're going at it in the comments? 22,000 comments. They're going back and forth, back and forth. You're crazy. That's not history. It was just a fictional tale. Well, if that's the case, let's look at this next slide, Jeremy, and tell me, what do you see?
I see the Trojan horse.
Bingo! Right. And it was a fable, a tale, right?
Yeah.
Except, you go to the next slide, in 1868, Heinrich Schliemann, a German archaeologist, discovered the city of Troy. From Homer's Iliad, that whole story. So they could say it's all fiction, but
a lot of coincidences.
Yeah, so it is okay to challenge history. And all right, so we're about 3 minutes out. Thank you guys. Okay, so the story of Atlantis, so all we know about this is because so the city.
He gets so excited.
He does.
I am really excited about this. No, I'm really going for something here. It was a lavish culture with all kinds, every animal imaginable, palaces of gold, ivory, and silver, and they had they said that they had hot and cold running water. 12,000 years ago.
12,000 years
They had some form of electricity, is what they're saying.
Wow.
I love it when she gives me those looks. That's why I show up. She's like, seriously, no, I don't buy that. And you know what? It is amazing. But anyway, their reach was a little too far. And they overpowered other areas, and it led to corruption, right?
Yes,
and as Plato would say, they ceased to wear their prosperity with moderation. And with absolute power comes absolute corruption. That's right.
Why do we never learn that lesson, Sean Paul?
I know.
We never do.
So we're about 2 minutes out. But anyway, and how do we know that Plato didn't just make this up, right? Because he was a Greek philosopher, and their integrity was worth more to them than their lives. And back then, he could have easily been fact-checked, and he started off talking to Socrates to a tale which, thought to be strange, is certainly true. And he keeps saying this over and over again. It's true, it's true.
Yeah.
Now, I have to fast-forward this, but basically, he heard from his great-grandfather, Solon, who was the inventor of democracy. He went to Egypt back when it was still on the walls of temples that no longer exist. And he got the story from some Egyptian priests. It was passed down through the generations to Plato. That's where it got it. This is Herodotus. He actually created a map. Let's go to the map that he created back in 430 BC, guys.
Wow.
Watch this. This was the world as he knew it, and that's Italy. I overlaid it with Google Maps, and let's see where it takes us, okay? You can see Google Maps, Google Earth, and let's move over onto the map.
Okay.
We go out west. And, you know, I'm trying to overlay the maps as much as possible. Look at what Herodotus' map said. Can you see what it said?
Atlantis.
Atlantis. And there is the Richat structure. That's a map from 430 BC.
I can see why you're excited.
Really, it's almost airtight. And so here's my takeaway, is that I hope that they could do an archaeological dig. They could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that Atlantis actually did exist. And not just a country, but as a world, we could learn from that lesson. That power, like you just said, it corrupts.
Yeah.
And we could learn from it and just show each other more love and respect.
Sean Paul, can I go? Because Kelly and I are people of faith.
Yes.
Can I go biblical for 1 second?
Absolutely.
You know, the first thing I thought of when you said it was all underwater? The flood.
I
And Noah.
thought that too.
I thought the flood and Noah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought you said. There was whales.
That was the first thing I
in
thought
the desert.
too. Yeah.
Can I just say something real quick, though? Plato was talking about it. They talked 12,000. There is a geological reference to massive flooding at that point.
Interesting.
So if he makes it up, all of a sudden he's nailing it to a T as far as this cataclysmic, geographical, historical moment.
Sean Paul, you blew my mind
Thank you
again.
so much,
It's
and you're
exciting,
so
isn't
passionate
it?
about what you do. We love that about you.
Oh, I love it. All right, don't go anywhere. We'll be back to wrap things up right after this. Seriously, I got goosebumps. I'm like, oh my gosh,
thought
the
the same
flood.
thing.
Was I being a little intense?
No, I loved
you
it.
were great.